It's a beautiful day here in New York City, and passengers that are flying out of LaGuardia or Westchester or Newark or into JFK have a gorgeous view of the city. I mean, look at the sky today. But my flight's not today, it's tomorrow. Will the weather be good? Will I have a good view? Let's see. Come fly with me. It's tomorrow, and here's the Manhattan skyline from a distance. Will I see this on today's climb? I know passengers on the left side of the plane will, but there were no seats left on the left side. Yeah, I don't think I'm going to have this view because of the seat selection on the right-hand side of the plane. That's all that was available. Right now, the wind is out of the west, calling for runway 4 to be the departure runway, and arrivals, like this CRJ 900 coming in from Charlotte, are landing on runway 31. The wind is currently offering a headwind component for runway 4 departures from the left and a nearly direct headwind for runway 31 arrivals. But the winds are light and could change. I'll keep that in mind, but runway 4 is what's active now, so I'm expecting to take off on runway 4 and flying the Bronx climb over the center of the Bronx. So why not go inside and head up to departures? All right, I'm getting ready to go to TSA here at Terminal C at LaGuardia Airport. It is super crowded here today at the Terminal C TSA checkpoint, but I'll see you on the other side. Once past TSA, I immediately checked out the space where the D Terminal once stood. This was filmed in late October 2024, but why look at concrete when you can see runway 31 arrivals from up here? I'm hanging out by a window to see the arrivals, and my specific goal is to see this one. This is the 737-800 that I'll be taking down to Palm Beach. Yes, I do this all the time, but my mission is to teach the airline passenger who may be going to the same place over and over again to appreciate how every flight is different. And I'm not talking about food, service, or class of service. We're all equal on a plane, and every passenger on board Delta Flight 2460 has to walk down this pathway to the 60s gates. What will be different happens past gate 69. For now, it's inside, westbound, and down. Okay, we're stepping back into time to the refurbished gates here at the C Terminal at LaGuardia Airport. I'm so excited about this. All right, we've got the old C Terminal there, which is still the new C Terminal. It's a little confusing, but I'm still excited about it no matter what. All right, I'm headed towards the 60s gates, but I'm just really thinking about that departure today off of runway 4. Today we should be flying the Bronx climb, and I'm super excited about that. Yes, I'm about to walk to a beautifully refurbished place, but my thoughts are just with the routing of the flight. Sure, this place looks great now, but just think that after takeoff, I'll have a great view of the Bronx with a Long Island Sound in the distance as we take off runway heading. Then at 500 feet, we'll turn left to the north. Of course, Florida is to the south, so we'll be turning to the left to get there after that. And the only way to get there is to go to my gate. Gate 69 is at the northwest corner of Terminal C. A bit of a walk, but this gate allows for a nose-on view of my plane. This bird will fly the LGA PBI route really soon. I found this neat little nook here at gate 69 away from all the crowds and a great view of my aircraft. But what I'm really focusing on is the operation, because from here I can see runway 31 arrivals and runway 4 departures. This Republic Airlines plane, painted in a rare Republic paint scheme, just touched down on runway 31. Remember that my ride drove under that runway's final approach course. Once clear of runway 31, the tower issues takeoff clearance to a plane on runway 4. This CRJ 900 is headed to Greensboro. Moments later, a SkyWest plane painted in United Express colors from Houston lands on runway 31. Because it can clear runway 31 before reaching runway 4, the tower quickly issues takeoff clearance to an Endeavour Air CRJ 900 headed to Charlotte. I say quickly because this Spirit Airbus from O'Hare was really close to runway 31, and the tower wanted to expedite that departure without having to wait for this yellow bird. As I was watching the Spirit plane land, something caught my attention over the Bronx. Here's a Newark departure crossing the runway 4 departure airspace. The departure controller must ensure separation not just between LaGuardia flights, but Newark flights to the northeast, too. As this DFW-bound American climbs on the Bronx climb with a left turn, we can see the previous LaGuardia departure headed west. Here's another example of potential air traffic conflicts with flights. Out there is an Air India flight from Newark to Mumbai, and below it are 2 LaGuardia departures headed west. More planes keep getting added to this mix. This Endeavour CRJ 900 is headed to Bangor and will fly runway 4's Pelham climb, which means that it will fly straight out instead of turning to the left, and will join a similar route to that Air India plane that we just saw, so the controller needs to ensure proper separation. Back here, a Delta A220 arrives on runway 31 because the intersection with runway 4 is clear of that Bangor-bound plane. I'm really enjoying this. Can you imagine that there are people behind my camera who are sleeping? This is such an exciting operation with so much going on, and it's time to join the mix. So let's get ready for that departure off of runway 4. It's not relevant, but my seat is in the Comfort Plus cabin today. What's relevant is that I have a window. It's not on the ideal side of the plane, but it's a window. I don't know how people can fly in a middle or aisle seat. Here's Delta reminding me of my status, and here's a map showing our route if it were to be flown in a straight line. It won't. We're getting close to departure time, and the ramp is being cleared for this 737 to leave. It's time for an announcement from one of the flight attendants.
Once again, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome aboard flight 2460 to Tampa.
We're not going to Tampa. I don't know why, but I'm hearing flight attendants say the wrong destination city more and more often these days. I guess they fly too much. We're going to Palm Beach, and it's time for pushback. Since we're leaving from a gate on the far western side of the C terminal, my thought is that we'd push back with the nose facing south toward the Grand Central Parkway, and we would take the alleyway behind the B terminal toward runway 4. And to support this theory, the runway 4 lineup was not very long, so that would be a nice shortcut. This is what my flight did the last time I left from the western gates, but it looks like our nose is going to be positioned outward. That's okay. I'll assume we'll take taxiways Alpha, Echo, and Bravo to runway 4, which is pretty standard. With the tug removed, we're ready for taxi, so the pilot checks in for taxi instructions to runway 4. Listen carefully to this.
Good afternoon, Delta 2469 Alpha with India.
Mrs. What was that Delta call sign?
Delta 2460 with Alpha.
Delta 2460 LaGuardia ground, runway 31 now. Change to climb out LaGuardia 7. On departure, turn right heading 355. Rate of exit to white, climb by the city.
This is now going to 31 via LaGuardia 7, heading 355. Vector is white, climb by the city.
Delta 2460, turn left on Alpha, hold short of Kilo.
That's Alpha from Kilo, Delta 2460.
There's been a runway change, and we will be using runway 31 for takeoff today. Remember that I said that the winds were light and could change earlier in this video? Well, they did, and they just changed right now. While still from the west, runway 31 continues to be in use, but as the departure runway, and the arrival runway has changed to runway 22. To get to the runway, however, the controller is having us turn left, even though the runway is to the right. That is to allow us to follow an American Airlines 737 at taxiway Kilo, which we're asked to hold short of. The ground controller is going to come back to us and tell us to now follow that American 737 at taxiway Kilo. Once we get there, we'll make a complete U-turn to get to runway 31.
Delta 2460, Kilo Bravo behind the opposite direction, American 737.
Behind the American 2460.
Yeah, behind him, Kilo Bravo, please.
Kilo Bravo behind him, yes, Delta 2460.
I've got a lot of thinking to do now because I was really thinking we'd use runway 4, but now it'll be runway 31. The controller told the pilot that after takeoff, we should turn right to a heading of 355 degrees. That's nearly north, so it will be nice to be sitting on the right side of the plane for a right turn. Hopefully I'll be able to catch a plane on approach to runway 22 as we climb off of runway 31 and turn right. The view on takeoff will be similar to the view if we were to take off from runway 4 with a left turn to 360 degrees, but we'll be slightly west of that climb on a 355 degree heading, which will allow for a fuller Bronx view. I can't remember the last time I took off on runway 31. You'll notice that we've slowed down a bit. That's because we're approaching taxiway Kilo, and in a moment, we'll see that American 737 we were waiting for to follow on taxiway Bravo. Once on taxiway Bravo, we'll take it all the way to the end, which is the far eastern side of the airport. I'm focusing on our taxi, but I'm also thinking about our turn as soon as we become airborne. The climb from runway 31 typically calls for air traffic control to assign a right-hand turn assigned by the controller. The controller gave us a 355-degree assignment and told us that our initial departure fix will be white, which is the typical departure fix for flights flying to the south. So after flying the 355-degree heading, the departure controller will assign a new heading to go towards the south, towards white, which is not too far from Toms River, New Jersey. The initial altitude that we need to climb to is 5,000 feet. However, the controller typically will assign higher altitudes if the airspace allows. Departures headed to the south towards the white intersection typically get cleared up to 12,000 feet. But remember that there are airplanes that are leaving Newark Airport headed to the northwest sharing the same departure airspace, so we could be potentially assigned a lower altitude to not conflict with those flights if they're in the area at the time. I will not be getting a view down the runway as we turn onto runway 31 since it will be a left turn to enter the runway. If we were to take off from runway 4, it would have been a right turn, and since I'm near the front of the plane, I would have had a decent view down the runway. We've been switched over to the tower, or runway controller, and are waiting for the American 737 to take off so we can enter the runway. Here, the controller will tell American to take off, and we're told to line up and wait on runway 31, and we should note that a plane will land on runway 22.
American 76, company 3 out, wind 240 at 5, runway 3166.
31 clear for takeoff, American 1056.
Delta 24-6 to LaGuardia, runway 31 line up and wait, 7 land runway 2.
31, line up and wait, Delta 24-6.
The American 737 is rolling down the runway bound for Dallas, and our Palm Beach bound 737 lines up and waits. The controller told our flight that traffic will land on runway 22. Once American lifts off, the controller will wait for a plane to touch down on runway 22, and as soon as it approaches the intersection with runway 31, the controller will issue us takeoff clearance. We're about to enter runway 31 now by crossing the yellow hold short lines painted on the ground. All we need to do is make a left turn to line up and wait. At the very end of the runway is an engineered material arresting system used for any flights at runway 13, the same runway in the opposite direction if they run out of runway. Many years ago, this area was simply a mound. The arresting system, or EMAS, is important because this side of the airport is surrounded by the waters of Flushing Bay. Passengers on the left side right now can see all the way down the 7,000 feet of runway 31, which has a compass heading of around 315 degrees. Up ahead in the cockpit, the flight deck crew keeps situational awareness and looks out for the arrival on the intersecting runway 22. As soon as that plane lands, the controller can issue us takeoff clearance. Since the intersection is so far down, the controller can actually issue us takeoff clearance a little bit before that plane reaches the intersection.
Delta 24-6, traffic on the 3.5 mile flight, runway 2607, from 31 clear for takeoff.
Runway 31 clear for takeoff, Delta 24-6.
We'll keep an eye out for the arrival on runway 22. Because it will take us around 45 seconds to reach the critical intersection with runway 22, the tower cannot issue clearance to a runway 31 departure if the runway 22 arrival is too close to the airport. I'd say that if anyone is within 2 miles to runway 22, issuing a plane takeoff clearance on runway 31 is a no-go. If runway 13 were the departure runway, the controller could issue takeoff clearance to departure if a plane is much closer to runway 22 for landing, since the distance to reach the critical intersection is much shorter. Everything is looking good as we pick up speed. We can see the water off the right side of the plane. This part is Flushing Bay, which branches off from the East River. We're about to cross runway 22, and because the next arrival was 3.5 miles out when we were issued takeoff clearance, I can't see it yet with these bright skies, but it will become visible as we turn to the north. The right-hand turn keeps us away from Manhattan and away from runway 22 arrivals on the downwind leg. The controller is now going to hand us off to New York Departure Control.
2460, contact departure.
Departs right, Delta 2460.
Before we check in, let's look out for that runway 22 arrival, which should be over the East River approaching runway 22 now. There it is. Once this plane lands, the next departure off of runway 31 should get issued takeoff clearance, providing that the next plane coming in for runway 22 is not too close behind. Once that plane lands, it will be told to turn off the runway and switch to ground control so the next plane can land. We're over the body of water between Queens and the Bronx, the East River, which also runs against the east side of Manhattan. We'll initially fly over a part of the South Bronx. Our flight deck crew is ready to check in with New York Departure now.
Departure Delta 2460, 245, 655 heading.
Delta 2460, New York Departure to contact, climb and maintain 6,000.
6,000, Delta 2460.
The pilot checked in at 2,000 feet, saying he was climbing to 5,000 feet on the 355-degree heading. The controller came back with a clearance to 6,000 feet. As I mentioned earlier, departures headed to White ultimately get cleared to 12,000 feet, specifically on this frequency, but there's a traffic conflict at 7,000 feet. Remember those Newark flights to the northeast I pointed out earlier? Well, traffic like that prevents this flight from climbing higher. Yes, those flights are also in a climb and will not level off at 7,000 feet, but 7,000 feet is the altitude at which conflict could occur by the time we get to that aircraft's position, so 6,000 feet is all we're allowed to climb to. This is a great view of the Bronx, and passengers seated on the left-hand side of the plane have a great view of Upper Manhattan. Again, this climb is similar to the Bronx climb in that it heads north over the Bronx, but it's further to the west, which affords a more complete view of the Bronx. This climb is also unnamed, as it's based only on the heading assigned by ATC. Not only do we see the Bronx here, but beyond it is Long Island Sound, and we can see Long Island on the top right portion of the view. We need to start heading toward White, so the controller is about to give us a left-hand turn, and now that we're clear of conflict, we can climb to 12,000 feet.
Delta 2460, turn left heading 320, climb and maintain 12, 12,000.
320, 12,000, Delta 2460.
The left turn to 320 degrees, or northwest, starts us to the left so that we can eventually head southwest. We'll get more left turns soon. And 12,000 feet keeps us 1,000 feet below arrivals to JFK coming into the west. Our left turn brings us toward New Jersey, which is where our fix of White is, but it's to the south. Clearance to White will come in a bit, and once the fix can accept us, based upon heading and the fix's demand. As we continue this left-hand turn, we get a great view of the Hudson River looking north. It's time for another left turn to get closer to White now.
Delta 2460, turn left heading 250.
Heading 250, Delta 2460.
250 degrees is just south of west. It's a gradual turn, and I'm expecting another turn to the left soon. These left turns are making me wish I was seated on the left-hand side of the plane. We're progressing to white, and while in this turn, the controller turns us even further.
Delta 2460, left turn heading 210.
Heading 210, Delta 2460.
210 degrees is a great heading to position this flight toward white. Remember that the controller is also looking for traffic from other area airports that needs to use white as their departure fix out of the New York City area. What we're doing here does not come as a surprise to me and is very similar to what we would have done if we had taken off on runway 4 as I thought we would. It's now time for us to switch frequencies to a second departure controller since this airspace is so crowded.
Delta 2460, departure 120.85.
2085, bye-bye, Delta 2460.
This new frequency will handle this flight up to 17,000 feet. Let's check in.
Given that departure, Delta 2460, 10-2, climbing 12.
Delta 2460, near departure direct to white.
Deck 2 white, Delta 2460.
All right, we're cleared to white, our departure fix, and can remain on course as we climb to 12,000 feet as we take in the view of Paterson, New Jersey. We're in the same airspace that a flight from Westchester County Airport headed to the white intersection would also be, so make sure you check out my recent video of a breeze flight from Westchester to Vero Beach, Florida, where this airspace is also utilized to get to white. The view from that plane is on the other side of the plane, and it affords a good view of the boroughs. That flight flew right over Manhattan, but this flight is west of Manhattan, and some amazing views are being had right now on the left-hand side of this Boeing 737. That's why I wanted to sit on the left. The view would be nearly the same if runway 4 was our departure runway. Despite the change in runway and a quick change in my thought process, not too much is different from what I anticipated. Runway 4 and runway 31 flights to white take similar paths. Down there is the airspace that Newark departures use for their initial climb. I'm keeping a sharp lookout for Newark departures. There goes a flight from Newark in a climbing turn, and just below it is a smaller plane likely flying a VFR route on this great day for flying. Seeing this makes the view very satisfying for me, and I'm really excited about the fact that pretty soon I'll be able to see Newark Airport. For now, us right-side passengers can clearly see the Passaic River and take in great views of Nutley, Lyndhurst, Bellevue, Bloomfield, North Arlington, Kearney, and so many other small towns that lie north of Newark, New Jersey. In a moment, we'll be at Newark and we'll have a great view of the Newark skyline, and that will be followed by Newark Airport. As an airline passenger, don't just focus on your origin and destination airports. There's a lot in between. Runway 4 left and 4 right are in use on this clear day, and I've tuned into the control tower frequency at Newark Airport to listen in. Since we're north of the airport, I'm interested in seeing the next departure, and the tower is going to tell a plane to take off, followed by another plane to line up and wait. We'll see both soon.
Lindbergh 4046, wind 3303, only 4 left, clear for takeoff. Forgot 3687, to attack, good afternoon, only 4 left, lot of weight.
Level way 4 left, forgot 3687, good afternoon.
And back on our frequency, we're told to climb to 17,000 feet right now.
Delta 2460, maintain 17,000.
17,000, Delta 2460.
Just south of Newark, a plane calls the tower for landing clearance on runway 4 right.
Lindbergh 4489 is on the ILS 4 right.
Number 4489, to attack, good afternoon, wind 3304, 4 right, clear line.
Good afternoon, sir. 4 right, clear line, 4489.
And back on our frequency, we're handed off to the high altitude New York Air Route Traffic Control Center.
Delta 2460, New York Center, 118.907.
1897, over by 2460.
You can see the plane that was issued takeoff clearance on runway 4 left taking off, and at the start of the runway, the next plane is entering the runway to line up and wait. Now, that departure is airborne and is told to contact New York Departure Control.
Number 4046, contact New York departure, have a good day.
Over departure, Lindbergh 4486.
And that heavy jet that was landing is now given some taxi instructions and to contact the ground controller.
United 135 heavy, turn right on Papa Yankee, hold short of runway 4 left.
Papa Yankee, hold short 4 left, United 135.
It's so nice to be enjoying the operation of another airport while so high up in the sky, but it isn't over yet just because we've passed by the airport. Newark operations are straight today on both the north and south side of the airport. The north side of the airport is reserved for departures, and the south side, the side that we see here, is reserved for arrivals. A few moments ago, we heard a Lindbergh flight call the tower for runway 4 right. Do you see it? There it is. It's small, but it's still visible from up here. And there's more to come. After all, Newark is a busy airport. Another airliner is about to call the tower for landing clearance.
Tower, let's get 282 is visual 4 right.
Last 282 to attack, good afternoon, wind 3204, 4 right, clear to land.
4 right, clear to land, Alaska 282.
So it's all eyes out now for Alaska Airlines, and we keep getting higher and higher, making the planes down there pretty hard to see. But we are moving in the opposite direction of the arrival, so it should be coming into view much quicker than it would be if we were just static on the ground. Do you see it down there? There it is. Let's continue on over Lower New York Bay by Staten Island as we fly toward White and the en route phase of this flight. Before we move forward, it's time for a message from the sponsor of today's video, Extra. Extra wallets come in a variety of shapes and sizes and colors. This one actually glows in the dark. With durable wallets and card holders, the value derived from Extra is unmatched. I always carry an Extra wallet with me, and I know I'll never lose it because I can add an air tag to it. Check out their site. They have lots of awesome products. And as a viewer of this channel, if you enter code MASELA at checkout, you'll save. Visit the link in the description below. Well, that was a great departure, and this map on the seat back in front of me shows the actual route we took after climbing over the Bronx off of runway 31 and turning left over New Jersey. There's so much more to see on this flight, and I'm not going to resign to watching a movie. Why would I do that when I could see Joint Base McGuire-Dix Lakehurst down there? I'm not sure what's going on here, but I can't resist this view of the city of brotherly love. That's Philadelphia down there, and just past it is the Philadelphia International Airport. While I like to look at the ground for what's down there, I also like to look in the air for some nice air-to-air action. Let's tune into Dover Tower now, where a Kalitta Air 747 is about to land after a short flight from JFK.
Dover Tower, Connie 9709, Heavy ILS 1.
And here it is, rolling out on runway 1 at Dover. Runway 1 heads north, and we're flying south, so it makes sense that this plane is moving in the opposite direction that we're moving in. The 747 is huge, so it's easy to see down there. As it continues on the runway, I'm thinking, where will it vacate? There's a taxiway before the end, but it might just be too late for that taxiway. Well, here's the pilot confirming that he'll vacate the runway at the end.
Alright, left at the end, ground 1 off, 9709.
I have to say, it was really exciting to see this from all the way up here. Another reason to always keep your eye out the window. This is turning out to be a fantastic flight, and what I just saw since leaving the New York City area made up for the lack of Manhattan view. This graphic shows our route so far as we head toward Florida. Here, while I didn't get to see the plane itself, I saw its contrail. This is from a JetBlue A320 from JFK to Orlando. Here's our progress on the map, and here's a United 737 en route from Providenciales to Chicago O'Hare. It's now time for us to begin the arrival to Palm Beach. Today we'll be flying the Clement to Arrival, which is designed for flights like this that are coming in from the northeast over the ocean. Our flight path took us out over the Atlantic in North Carolina because that routing provides the most direct path from New York City to Palm Beach, and there was no weather en route to warrant another route today. Now, if you watch my channel a lot, you know that I've flown this approach many times, but this is the first time I'll be flying it while sitting on the right side of the plane and landing on runway 10 left. How exciting is that? I told you that no flight is different. This way I get to see the coast of Florida, then areas to the north, west, and south of the approach. Most of this arrival procedure is simply following the published route, which keeps us on a southwest heading between 214 and 224 degrees. Then, when in the vicinity of Interstate 95, we turn to the west. Then we await radar vectors from Palm Beach Approach Control to the final approach course. Today, we'll be flying a visual approach to runway 10 left. We're now coming up on the shoreline, and down there we're looking at the Juno Beach Pier. We'll continue this heading at an angle to the shore for several more miles before we turn right to a 271-degree heading. By the way, we're passing over an airspace fix that's also called Juno at this point. And we're planning on crossing the next fix, Sands, at 4,000 feet at 210 knots. I'm not providing ATC here because there's nothing being communicated from the flight deck crew right now. From here we have a great view of the Intracoastal Waterway, and the east-west road is Donald Ross Road. Donald Ross was a World War II hero, but many think that the road is named after a golf course designer since there are so many golf courses in the area. Just look at all those golf courses down there. Many of them are in the backyards of people's homes. This is a populated area called Palm Beach Gardens, just north of Palm Beach and south of Jupiter. The largest road that we see down there is Interstate 95, which runs from Maine to Florida, and once we're over it, we'll reach the airspace fix of Sands, so just based on the presence of this road, I have a great idea when we will be starting our left downwind leg to runway 10 left by starting a right-hand turn to join the downwind. This right-hand turn will be the final right-hand turn of the flight as the airport is off to our left side, so I need to enjoy the view as the wing dips. After the right turn at Sands, it's waiting for radar vectors via left-hand turns to the runway. I can see so much more now that we're in the right-hand turn. Look at all those golf courses down there. But we won't see a view like this for much longer. PBI is a busy airport, and in order to join the final approach course to the runway, we'll need to go out to the west a bit before turning back to land, which means that we'll have two urban views. the view that we see now, and then the view on the final approach course as we re-enter the populated area. Here in South Florida, people gather near the ocean, and the further inland you go, the less the population density is, so the less that we'll see, until we turn around and see more once again. The runway today is actually being used for mixed operations. That means both arrivals and departures are landing on runway 10 left. For every arrival, there's a departure if everything is ideal, but sometimes you have multiple arrivals and there's not enough space for departures. This is a very, very busy airport. There is also a crosswind runway, but it isn't used as often. General aviation aircraft that are very, very small have access to a parallel runway, runway 10 right. We will not be landing on that runway because it's too short for our Boeing 737 today. Now it's time for some ATC. Finally, the controller is going to assign this flight a lower altitude. Unfortunately, I was not able to pick up the response from the pilot, but you can clearly hear the air traffic controller here talking.
Delta 2460, descend and maintain 3000.
As we get clearance to 3,000 feet, I now have another airport in sight. On the left side of the screen is the North Palm Beach County General Aviation Airport. It's located 12 miles northwest of the city of Palm Beach and is in a rather open area for sure. This is an uncontrolled airport, meaning that there's no control tower, and pilots are landing and departing by self-announcing their position to alert each other of their presence. We're keeping away from that airport and are under the control of a controller, and if any other airplanes are near us, they would be talking to the same controller as the controller we're talking to, who will be able to provide air traffic separation services. Now is a good time for the left-hand turn to the south.
Delta 2460, turn left heading 190, descend and maintain 1500.
A left turn to 190 degrees is nearly due south and puts us on a left base leg for runway 10 left. We're also told to descend to 1,500 feet. The decision to turn left here is a factor of other planes that are in the traffic pattern, and down at the airport, there is indeed a plane that will need to take off before us on our runway, and our turning position gives this departing plane plenty of time to go onto the runway and take off before we land. You can see that the area we're turning over is much less dense, and way out to the west, there is zero population at all. If we were a lot higher up here, we would be able to see the Gulf of Mexico on a clear day, but we're going to be headed back toward the Atlantic Ocean to land. Runway 10 left has a heading of around 100 degrees, and we can't simply make a left turn from 190 to 100 degrees to land. We need to intercept the extended center line of the runway at an angle, and once we approach the extended center line, we can continue to the left and fly that path straight into the runway. An angle of more than 45 degrees would be too much, so the controller will issue us a turn of 130 degrees to intercept the final approach course. 130 degrees allows for a 30-degree intercept of the final approach path.
Delta 2460, turn left heading 130, intercept the final report.
We're told to intercept the final, and although we can't hear the pilot, I assume that he said that he has the airport in sight, and we're cleared for a visual approach and are handed off to the control tower frequency at the airport.
2460, clear visual approach 0 left, tower 191.
So the next turn we make will be on our own directly toward the runway. Since the runway heads east-west, and so does the grid system of the roads below, we'll know we're aligned with the runway once we're parallel to the east-west roads. The 130-degree heading puts us on a diagonal. It's now time to check in with the control tower at the airport.
Tower Houston, Delta 2460, joining 10 left.
6 Palm Beach Tower, good afternoon. Continue, I'm not traffic in position.
Continuing, Delta 2460.
For some reason, these transmissions are a bit broken, but we did not get clearance to land yet. Of course, that is the goal for us to hear on this frequency, but the tower mentioned something about traffic and position, which means that a plane will be on the runway and will take off in front of us. We'll get clear to land once that plane takes off. For now, I'm looking down at Southern Boulevard, an east-west road that runs along the south side of PBI Airport and extends all the way out here. We'll be paralleling this road all the way down. This road is very close to the final approach course's south side, so I'm expecting the final turn to line up with the runway any second now. I'm also expecting to see this road for the remainder of this flight. Here's the final airborne turn now. We've got 6 miles until touchdown, and over on the ground at the airport, the tower is planning on getting one flight out before we land on runway 10 left, so he's now going to have a plane line up and wait on runway 10 left while informing the pilot that our aircraft is 6 miles out.
Charlie 119, Palm Beach Tower, good afternoon. Traffic 6 miles left, line up and wait.
Check the traffic, line up and wait 10 left, chart right, moment 9.
Now, the reason why the controller told that plane to line up and wait now is because another plane just landed on runway 10 left, so essentially he's going to squeeze out one departure between two arrivals, the plane that landed and us. So the plan is to wait for that arrival to slow down enough so that he can be assigned a taxiway to exit the runway on before the plane holding can take off. It looks like taxiway hotel is the best option, so he issues this instruction to get off the runway.
Air Sprint 826, right turn hotel 9, good afternoon.
Roger,
The controller observes that plane to ensure that it's off the runway before he can issue the departure takeoff clearance. Check out my video from November 9th where the tower told the plane to take off, but the pilot in position rejected the takeoff, questioning if the arrival was indeed clear of the runway. The arrival now is clear of the runway, so the departure is issued takeoff clearance.
Charlie 119, 10 left.
For takeoff, 10 left, Charlie 119.
And since the departing flight is on its departure roll, we are now cleared to land.
Delta 2460, runway 10 left, clear to land.
Clear to land, Delta 2460.
Okay, we're cleared to land. There's plenty of space from the previous departure to become airborne before we touch down on the 10,000-foot long runway, which is clearly visible from the flight deck window. What's visible to us is Southern Boulevard as we descend lower and lower, paralleling this road. We're headed toward the Atlantic Ocean, but of course we'll terminate our time in the sky several miles before that at the Palm Beach International Airport, our final destination on today's 737. For now, I'm going to take it all in as we look to the south because this is the very first time I'm on this approach from this side of the plane. Let's land.
Delta 2460, left turn, Delta ground 49, good day.
Delta ground point, Delta 2460.
All right, what a great approach that was, the PBI, and I finally got to sit on the other side of the airplane for that approach. I've been doing that approach quite often, and I never got the view off the right-hand side, so it was really nice to see. And as for that departure off of runway 31, I'm telling you, LaGuardia departs runway 31 very, very often, but for me, it almost never happened, so I was super excited about that. It also came last minute. I really wasn't expecting to take off on runway 31 because all day they were landing on runway 31 and departing on runway 4, but they switched. All right, everybody, I'm going to end the video here. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you're not a subscriber to my channel, I invite you to subscribe by clicking on the subscribe button below. Hit the bell button, hit the like button, and you'll see me again very, very soon.